Vehicle owners in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal face the highest probability of being hijacked or having their vehicles stolen, while those in Northern Cape, Free State and Limpopo appear to be at the lowest statistical risk. That's according to an analysis from market research which overlays the eNatis database of registered vehicles, cars and motorcycles on the 2018-2019 crime statistics from the South African Police Service, and to understand vehicle theft patterns across all 9 provinces, especially how they impact on business. We have Ernest North, who is the co-founder at Naked. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me, Colin.
Let's look at the perspective of car hijackings in as far as business vehicles are concerned. You remember that most of the time when you are on the highways, there are marked vehicles that are in transit to deliver goods in as far as the logistics businesses are concerned. How risky or how vulnerable are they to hijacking?
Yes, it's unfortunate that as the crime statistics gets released, it becomes very apparent for us that it's necessary for us to look at these statistics again, and we're faced with the reality of how big the chance or the probability for all of us are. While there has been some encouraging statistics, both in personal vehicles and business vehicles, in terms of a slight reduction in the overall probability of cars and business vehicles that have been hijacked, in overall, the statistics are still quite scary. There's still statistics that show that more than 1% of vehicles are actually being hijacked every month, and what that shows is that the chance of a vehicle being stolen or hijacked is something that unfortunately is a very real risk for all drivers in South Africa.
What should be concerning is that whilst there's still vehicle hijackings on the rise, who is hijacking them? And where are they taking these vehicles? And who's buying them?
It's interesting to show that, of course, one of the initial obvious analyses is to look at different vehicle types and the different makes. There are obviously certain vehicle types that are more susceptible to being hijacked, but overall, if you look at it as a percentage of the number of vehicles there are on the road for each type, unfortunately, it's showing that most vehicles are open to that risk. I think on your question of who is performing these crimes, it is very consistent with where the economic activity in South Africa is lying. And so while the majority of people or the majority of registered cars in South Africa are in Gauteng and secondly in KwaZulu-Natal, it also shows that's where the provinces are where the most hijackings are taking place. But it's alarming to see that in Gauteng the proportion is even higher than the number of cars that are in the country. So just over 40% of cars or private cars are registered in Gauteng, but almost 50% of actual hijackings and thefts take place in Gauteng. So it is very much related to where the economic activity is going on.
So the profile of the hijackers, what are they looking for? Is it brand new cars? Is it cars that they're going to use just for one call for a robbery and neglect or abandon the vehicle later on? Or is it a hijacking for the purpose of exporting the car beyond South African borders?
The statistics that we've seen certainly show that the modus operandi of hijackers serve 2 purposes. The one is to, in some cases, go after the valuables that are in the car as part of robbing the individual and the things that they have in the car, laptops, jewelry, that sort of thing, and to sell the car afterwards. But actually, the main modus operandi is to go after the valuables, and then the second big modus operandi is for the parts to be sold afterwards. And so, realistically, the distinction between new cars and old cars is not that significant there, because for parts to be sold, there are cases for some makes where the older vehicles are more appealing, and there are some makes where the newer cars are more appealing. So unfortunately, if we drill down into the statistics, almost all of those cars, new and older cars, are showing still a very high probability of these incidents.
How have tracking devices mitigated the rate of hijacking?
I think tracking devices performs an important part of sort of managing risk in this regard. The most important part is especially where people have driving with families, and especially people with young kids, feel that the vehicle being recovered is not necessarily the main concern. Their main concern is that should something happen, where an incident where the child is still in the car, the probability of having or the benefit of having a tracking device is obviously much more important than the vehicle being recovered. In a lot of cases, though, we are finding that if a vehicle is stolen or hijacked, even having the tracking device in there, if you're not successful in recovering it within 2 to 3 hours, the damage being done to the car, if it is being recovered, is in many cases so significant that very often the car is still a write-off. So on the one hand, for high-valued vehicles, we personally, in our experience as Naked Insurance, have certainly encouraged people with very high-valued vehicles to continue using tracking devices. But for people with lower-valued cars, the sort of typical 100, 200,000 rand car, we're finding that the cost of paying for a tracking device relative to the reduction in insurance premium is very often not worth it. But of course, if you're doing it for the reason of family safety, then we completely understand.
What about the trucks? There are times when we cover stories regarding trucks that have been hijacked because of the cargoes they have. But again, you'll find that many people would be in danger if they didn't let go of the truck, although they have tracking device and there's also the visual monitoring mechanisms where the headquarters are able to see what's happening in the truck and where the truck is at the specific moment.
Spot on. Many of those big fleets have very advanced telematics functionality, either direct or with the help of their tracking companies. And accordingly, as you say, they're able to monitor on a real-time basis where all those trucks are. That has certainly reduced the risk of hijacking significantly. But it's also worth mentioning that the type of materials being transported by those trucks influence significantly what the risk is. And so where the actual value of the actual commodity being transported is valuable, you still see a significant risk of hijacking. For us, though, as Naked Insurance, we're focusing on private cars and not on business cars. And our analysis really shows that for private cars, the types of incidents happening at the different times of the day, and especially in the different provinces as you're driving different kinds of vehicles, is there are some positive trends, some green shoots in terms of where the crime statistics have improved, but unfortunately as a whole still shows a very alarming picture in terms of your risk to being hijacked.
Right. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks so much, Colin.
Okay. Ernest North is a co-founder at Naked, painting us a picture of the rate of car hijacking in the country.